Art is far more than decoration, it is a vital force that shapes and is shaped by the civilizations that create it. To understand a society's deepest values, fears, and aspirations, we must look beyond the museum display and consider how people originally interacted with these works. An ancient Egyptian statue, for instance, was not a silent relic but a dynamic part of life. The colossal statues of Pharaoh Amenhotep III in Thebes were famous in antiquity for their mysterious song, a sound possibly caused by wind or even local pranksters. This phenomenon transformed the statue into an oracle. When the Roman Emperor Hadrian visited and heard the sound, it was interpreted as a divine endorsement of his rule, a moment later immortalized in poetry carved onto the statue itself. The meaning of the artwork was created through this lived interaction, not fixed by the sculptor alone. Similarly, an Athenian wine cooler from the 5th century BCE, decorated with scenes of riotous, drunken satyrs, might seem a simple celebration of excess. Yet, for the Athenians who used it, these images of chaotic, half-wild creatures served as a potent reminder of the fragile boundary between their own ordered urban civilization and the barbarity they sought to leave behind. The art prompted reflection precisely because it was part of the everyday. One of humanity's most enduring uses of art is to grapple with mortality. Long before photography, images served to remember the dead and soften the sting of loss. The exquisite Greek funerary statue of Phryxiclea, a maiden who died before her wedding, confronts the viewer with a direct, painted gaze. An inscription speaks in her voice, creating an intimate bridge across millennia. In Roman Egypt, strikingly realistic portraits of the deceased were not hung on walls but attached to their mummy cases, sometimes kept in homes for a time, allowing the living to hold the image of the departed close. These portraits were about more than memory, they were tools for managing grief. Even the story of the first portrait, as told by Pliny the Elder, a young woman tracing her departing lover's shadow so her father could model it in clay, speaks to this fundamental human desire to preserve presence through image, to keep the absent near. Conversely, art has always been a primary language of power, used to awe both subjects and the rulers themselves. The staggering terracotta army buried with China's first emperor, Qin Shi Huangdi, is a monumental declaration of authority. The sheer scale, with thousands of individually detailed soldiers, and the conscious act of burying such a colossal investment of labor forever, screamed of a power so vast it could afford such a sacrifice. In Egypt, Ramses II pursued a different strategy of visibility, covering his kingdom with his own image. His giant statues at Luxor were very public proclamations of dominance. Yet the audience for such art was complex. While meant to intimidate the populace, some interior temple images would have been seen only by elites, and it is likely the common people viewed such propaganda with as much skepticism as we do today. Perhaps, in part, this art was also meant to convince the pharaoh himself of his own godlike status. The very style of art reflects a civilization's evolving self-conception. A revolution in ancient Greek sculpture, moving from stylized forms to breathtaking realism, permanently altered how humans saw themselves and were seen. Praxiteles' Aphrodite of Knidos, the first life-sized nude of a goddess, was a shocking innovation. Its provocative pose, with a hand covering the pubic area, actively invited a specific kind of gaze, establishing a visual relationship between viewer and subject that echoes through art history. This Greek realism was later enshrined by thinkers like Johann Joachim Winckelmann as the classical ideal, held up as the pinnacle of artistic achievement and, tellingly, linked directly to the health and virtue of the state itself. Art became a measure of a civilization's worth. This link is especially potent in religious art, whose true significance lies not in its aesthetic form alone but in the rituals and beliefs that animate it. A well-intentioned effort to preserve the ancient Buddhist frescoes in India's Ajanta caves by copying them as art inadvertently stripped them of their primary meaning. These images were not created for gallery contemplation but as integral parts of devotional practice and meditation within a living sacred space. To reduce them to mere visual specimens is to misunderstand their essence. Religious art often seeks to make the divine present, to facilitate an experience. In Christian traditions, for example, statues and paintings were not just representations, they were focal points for prayer, believed to channel the holy, sometimes even becoming objects of pilgrimage where the faithful sought miracles. This very power of images inevitably profits a fierce backlash. Iconoclasm, the destruction of religious imagery, recurs across history, from the Byzantine Empire to the Protestant Reformation. Yet even this act of erasure is a form of engagement that confirms the image's potency. Iconoclasts rarely destroy every trace, often, they deface images in symbolic ways, scratching out eyes or noses, leaving the broken object as a testament to the victory over idolatry. The scarred remains become a new kind of art, bearing witness to the conflict over what can, or cannot, represent the divine. This tension lies at the heart of religious art. How can the infinite be captured by the finite? Different traditions answer differently, from the aniconic geometric patterns in Islamic mosques that evoke transcendence without depiction, to the intricate Hindu statues embodying the manifold aspects of the gods. Ultimately, art is a conversation across time and culture. It is a tool for remembrance, a weapon of power, a window to the gods, and a mirror reflecting our changing ideas of beauty, truth, and ourselves. By learning to read not just the image but its original context and function, we unlock a deeper understanding of the human journey. From a terracotta soldier's silent vigil to the provocative gaze of a marble goddess, every work tells a story about the civilization that produced it, a story of what was feared, worshipped, celebrated, and ultimately, what it meant to be human in a particular time and place.